From the Foundation Studio, right here on Biloxi's Back Bay, I want to welcome you to Super Talk Outdoors, where we celebrate every single Monday at lunchtime the world-class outdoors of the state of Mississippi, because as I say every week, we are the capital of the outdoors in America. Mississippi is the capital of the outdoors in America. And as I say, pretty often I stand toe-to-toe with just about anyone to debate that point. I want to thank you for joining us on the powerful SuperTalk Mississippi radio network, or on SuperTalk TV at C-Spire TV, or you might be watching the show actually on YouTube or Facebook, or listening on your favorite podcast. It's January the 8th, 2024. I might add, too, that tough weather is coming through Mississippi on the coast starting around noon and then through the evening. So pay close attention to the weather situation so you can know how it might impact you. I always say this, the views on this show are mine, not those of the foundation, the primary sponsor of this show. When it comes to outdoors and outdoors issues, you can count on me to say what needs to be said. And really, I'm honored to be in this position. And I should, I remind you every now and then that there are always some forces behind the scenes that are trying to keep me from giving my point of view about issues. And that's going to fall on deaf ears. I can assure you, as long as I'm in this position, that is for sure. Listen, we're not going to give a bunch of talk this morning. We're going to go straight to our guest, someone I really look forward to visiting with again. Ramsey Russell is really, I mean, some have said that he is the Jim Shockey of the duck world. His Get Ducks is incredibly important. We'll remind you what he's doing. We had a terrific 1-hour visit when I first started this show, someone I've been wanting to get back in touch with, because he's doing duck hunts literally all around the world. And what he's learning from his global learning, he can bring back to Mississippi and help us be better at what we do, help us understand better why we have to be focused on anti-hunting, why we have to be focused on conserving the resource. This guy has seen it from just about every angle from countries around the world. Anyway, without any further ado, let me welcome my friend Ramsey Russell back to Super Talk Outdoors. How you doing, Ramsey?
Glad to be here, Ricky. How are y'all?
We're doing fantastic, man. We're doing good. Hey, listen, we're going to actually, Houston Haven is going to be joining me toward the latter part of the show today, and we're going to get an update on Mississippi duck season. But boy, man, with lack of water and not a lot of cold air, it's been not a great season so far. Now, look, where I've hunted, we've been lucky. My son and my friends have had pretty darn good hunts, so they've been lucky. But those stories are
been a tough season. Continental. I mean, everybody I know clear up to Alberta has been waiting on ducks. You know, it was 54 degrees on Christmas Day in Alberta. Edmonton, Alberta. That's a sure sign this is the duck season winter forgot so far.
Isn't that something? I mean, it's just it's an incredible thing. And our ducks do come from that part of the country, don't they?
They do. They sure do. They come up there from Canada and a lot of the North Dakota, Minnesota.
Yeah, so we'll talk more about that. Man, what you been up to, man? Because every time I get kind of check in with what your activities are about, you're in Australia again. I mean, you've been all around the world. How many miles have you traveled since the last time you and I talked?
Too many. I've been around the world a few times since we talked a couple of years ago, Ricky. And, you know, our company motto is it's duck season somewhere, which is to say it's duck season somewhere every day of the year. And we find ourselves traveling a lot, pursuant to getducks.com, U.S. Hunt List, our own podcast, Duck Season Somewhere, where we're documenting duck hunting culture worldwide. It keeps us pretty darn busy.
What's interesting, you know, I chatted with you a little bit about this show. I'm a former publisher for the Sun Herald down here in coastal Mississippi and the Times-Picayune over in New Orleans, and then the Mobile Press Register over in Alabama. So I had a long history of understanding the role a publisher can play in the community to editorially focus on issues that are important to the community. You can give back to the community. You got to build a strong company. So through Get Ducks, you built a strong company, but also it's giving you the opportunity to do advocacy work, to understand what is this anti-hunting thing? Why is it important to do conservation efforts? You're seeing it front and center, and you're videoing those efforts, aren't you?
That's what we're doing, and I appreciate you bringing that up. It's it's hard to be from the great state of Mississippi, where hunting and fishing is a birthright of sorts, and see parts of the world that do not treasured as that. Now, look, I'm a wildlife manager. I'm a forester by trade, and so we grew up. I was taught maximum sustained yield and scientifically based decision making. And what you see happening, not only in Australia, but they reared back up in Argentina during the pandemic, is you see a lot of these anti-hunters around the world fanning the flames that what we're doing is wrong and evil and bad for ducks. Our science, billions of dollars of research here in North America, supporting the North American model, say that regulated bag harvest doesn't impact waterfowl populations. They've been fighting it down in Australia for decades. It's hit a fevered pitch. We went down in November to go up to Northern Territories and hunt magpie geese, plumed whistlers, wandering whistlers, which was a bucket list species of mine, and ended up recruiting a couple of research scientists to go with us that work for universities. The Smithsonian even called and said, well, they were sad that their schedule didn't quite align to go on this particular trip, but we went and we shot ducks, and then we had some other species donated so that we could collect genetic tissue samples and also collect study skins for museums. You think about this. Think about, you go to a museum like the Smithsonian, there's study skins that are 200 years old. Never would they have dreamed when they placed those skins in storage that 200 years later, scientists would still be learning something about the species, about the habitat, about the conservation from those skins. And that's what we're trying to do. When the anti-hunters shut down, if they shut it down in Australia, that opportunity for conservation is completely gone. And they're doing it in the absence of scientific decisions. That's what's so troublesome. It's easy to say, oh, this bird's endangered. Oh, the populations aren't doing great when they don't have the North American model with the state and federal agencies and university research data to back them up. You see what I'm saying? Anything's possible when you don't have the proof.
Well, listen, Ramsey, I talk about it on this show all the time. The North American wildlife model is what made Mississippi a leader in conservation in the world, really. I mean, the North American wildlife model, and any efforts to move away from the North American wildlife model is a move in the wrong direction, isn't it?
It is. And there are, whereas the anti-hunters in Australia are literally paddling into your decoys with legal impunity, I might add. We don't see that here in North America. A lot of what we see in North America is we've got well-funded anti-hunting groups trying to undermine the North American model. And here's the thought is that let's take ducks, for example. Ducks belong to everybody. It's a public trust species. So why are the state and federal agencies managing them for just us million duck hunters? Well, we're footing the bill for it. And they're saying, well, y'all shouldn't be biased into managing output by footing the bill for it. So let's disassociate firearm and wildlife related funding from conservation, and then they can manage wildlife for everybody. That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's incredible. The thing, I'm still confused, to be honest with you. Why? Let's take the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks Commission as an example. Earlier this year, there was a recommendation to fund efforts by Ducks Unlimited, I think also Delta Waterfowl, to efforts all along the Mississippi Flyway. And there was a debate and discussion about it, and two commissioners, if my memory serves me correct, actually voted against it. How can there be confusion about where our ducks come from Mississippi ducks come from, and the efforts that we need? Mississippi needs to be involved in to ensure more ducks. How do we get there?
Ricky, the main culprit of think about it, we don't have the waterfowl we had 20 years ago, 40 years ago, 60 years ago, because we've got a lot more humanity, a lot more civilization. We're losing habitat. Habitat is the key. And we've been doing, myself, my company have been doing a lot of collaborative research with a geneticist named Phil Lebreski over at University of Texas, El Paso. In fact, he accompanied us to Australia, and he has got legions of research demonstrating Uh, Part of the problem in North America, especially with mallards, is the infusion of game farm mallards into the genetics. In fact, we were in a conversation on our podcast just last week with another scientist that hinted that the reason a lot of these ducks aren't migrating to the south anymore is because they've got this old world game farm genetic.
Why don't we do this? That's a good place to. We'll pick it up from right there when we get on the other side. But we're having a terrific conversations with someone who's traveled the world from Get Ducks. My friend Russell Ramsey. We'll see. Ramsey Russell.
That's right.
Right after this. We'll see you after this break. Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. We're visiting with Russell Ramsey, who literally has traveled the world learning about science and conservation and anti-hunting efforts literally around the world. I mean, I'm thousands and thousands of miles would probably be an understatement to how much traveling he's doing. When we came back to the break, though, he was mentioning this notion of farm-raised mallards and how that may have genetically somehow induced some mallards not to migrate. Why don't you pick it up from there, Ramsey? Excuse me.
Ramsey Russell. Two first names is tough to hang on to, Ricky.
Yeah.
Two last names, however you look at it. But game farm mallards were introduced into the United States decades ago. I mean, the Atlantic Flyway historically did not have mallards until they were introduced. And even today it's becoming more prolific, and a lot of the genetic research is showing that these birds are smaller, their survivability is not as good, they do not migrate, and they're beginning to pick this up. Matter of fact, Ducks Unlimited and Phil Lebreski just collaborated in something called Duck DNA, where hunters around the United States that are applied and drawn are submitting their mallard data to this study, because they're just trying to figure out how deeply entrenched into the wild mallard genetic are these game farms. So the notion that you should put my duck stamp dollars into game farm mallards instead of into habitat, it is completely ludicrous. It's an embarrassment.
Yeah. Well, in this case, the commission voted, I think, again, if my memory serves, 3-2 to support the funding. But the fact that there were two people on the commission who voted against that funding is and then when you listen to the conversation, they wanted science that proved that farm raising ducks was not a good thing. And as you pointed out, you've cited some research that's been done.
The science is out there. It's all over the internet, and they need to look no further than UT, University of Texas El Paso, for a lot of research on that topic.
But again, the ducks in Mississippi come from Alberta and North Dakota and other places like that. And it's interesting. You pointed out on Christmas Day it was 54 degrees. Well, we got to have Alberta. It was 54 degrees in Alberta. You got to have cold air to push those ducks down. And this year has been a year like none other, hasn't it?
It has been. You've got to have cold air, but you've also got to have snow cover. And to best of my knowledge right now, we have very, very little snow cover in the entire United States. And I know I talked to a outfitter associate of ours up in Alberta on December 18th that was still shooting geese. Those snow geese should have migrated to Arkansas, Louisiana, back in mid-October, late October, and they were still hanging out up in Alberta. And I've been blessed to hunt in Wyoming and Montana this year, and up in the northern tier, and everybody's been waiting on ducks. There's just not been cold weather or snow cover to make them fly south. I just like I say, I think it's going to be the duck season that winter completely forgot.
It's so interesting. So are you talking to some folks that are having some decent hunts this year in Mississippi?
People are getting them, Ricky. With the drought, sure not helping. It doesn't create a lot of great habitat. But yeah, there's some people hitting around and killing a few ducks, but it's far and few between.
Listen, one guy reached out to me to say that he's got pumps going all over the place, and because of the drought, where he pumped water, the ground just absorbed it. He's got to pump again. So his initial pump and all these duck holes that they have was $50,000 to pump them. And he was having to turn the pumps back on again. Is that incredible?
It's incredible, but you got to think beyond the duck hole and look at the landscape. We need lots of habitat across the landscape to attract lots of waterfowl.
Yeah.
So even when we do get a few ducks right now, some of the great properties have got a few ducks, but a little bit of pressure is going to push them out. You know, waterfowl very intolerant to too much hunting pressure, and the more habitat you've got across the landscape, the more they can get away and hide and relax.
Hey, so you're producing a video from your Australian visits.
We did.
So talk to me about what you guys are hoping to do there.
Well, what we're hoping to do is talk to the middle ground. You're never, ever, ever, ever going to convince a fringe, lunatic, radical anti-hunter that he's wrong. You're short of just not shooting an animal, and then they're going to be against you for something else. I'm telling you. But what we're trying to do is speak to the middle ground down there. We're trying to bring science. We're trying to bring some interpretation, and just explain to them the value of duck hunting beyond what it may seem to be to an outsider. That's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to spell out that, you know, hunting is conservation, that we hunters do care about this wildlife resource in perpetuity, that we're not just out there hanging heavy strap. We're feeding, like I like to say, we're feeding our families, we're feeding our traditions, we're feeding our souls with these ducks, and they do need some research. You know, a lot of the natural world has been discovered in the past hundreds of years since America was discovered and whatnot. But boy, with this new genetic stuff they're doing, it's like a whole rediscovery process, Ricky. And so the opportunity to collaborate with these guys and go down and not only enjoy and hunt a couple of beautiful different areas, but to contribute to science. I found a lot of satisfaction in that.
Well, you fell in love with duck hunting early on. Are you still a bit surprised, or maybe you're not at all surprised, that there are so many people who want to do these long excursions to have the opportunity to kill a different kind of duck at places around the world? You come in contact with some really adventurous people, don't you?
We sure do. We come in contact with a lot of those experienced collectors, I like to call them. And you know, the world is so much bigger than our own backyard, and we've got a pretty amazing backyard. There's no doubt about that. But the world is so much bigger. Like the most recent trip I just went down to Tasmania. It took, I don't know, 40 hours, 5 flights, 4 airlines to land on this tiny little island, about 500 square miles with 900 residents, and a big old goose called a Cape Barren goose, which is actually on average bigger than our Canada geese. In fact, it vies for one of the largest geese in the world, and it's just a very, very interesting animal. And to us, it seems so exotic, but when you get down to Tasmania, it's a tradition. They've hunted these birds forever, and they do it real different. It's more of a driven shoot or a pass shoot, but just an amazing experience. And you know, here's something funny. I'm all the way down in Australia. When I get back in touch with my roots, my youthful roots in Mississippi, because they say, well, we're going to go out and hunt these wallabies, and these wallabies are hunting about belt tall, little kangaroo looking things. I'm like, I told the boy I was with, I said, I have no compunction whatsoever to go shoot this little thing. He said, well, that's fine, but maybe you could walk up the cover and push him for me. So I grabbed my shotgun, going to just push the cover, and we're walking through these I don't know, belt high, chest high little bracken ferns up in the woods. And all of a sudden, these little things start running. It's like a rabbit. I mean, you think they'd be hopping, you know, over your head, but they're not. They're running about a foot off the ground, trying to hide from you, trying to slip around you. And all I could think is, man, if I had some beagle hounds, how much fun could we have? And but we still have a good time going out and shooting them. And you know, they're absolutely delicious. It's like a venison.
Yeah.
As soon as we pushed the wallabies, and everybody got some, including myself. Out come the skin and knives and the ice chest, and we get to skinning and get to working on them.
Hey, so, you know, it's interesting. Someone made the point on my show, Russell, that in Mississippi, where we're sitting right now, we may be 10 minutes away from public ground somewhere.
That's right.
I mean, when you travel, you get a chance to see what it's like when you don't have that kind of access. Man, Our forefathers were so smart in setting aside so much public land for Mississippians, weren't they?
That's a fact. We, one of the greatest limitations to hunting worldwide is access to places to hunt. And it gets a little crowded here in the United States, but still, we are blessed. I can't think of anywhere else that's got as much public land as Mississippi and the United States of America.
Hey, listen, in the short time we have left, what you going to do fun in the coming weeks?
Well, now the real work starts. Our convention season starts. We're going to Dallas Safari Club International up in Nashville. I tell anybody listening that wants to come to a couple of sure enough hunting shows, Dallas Safari Club and Safari Club International in Nashville are both just amazing shows. Nashville is the largest Safari Club International in Nashville, Tennessee, January 31st to 3rd, is the largest hunting show on earth. You can't imagine it. And we'll be there. Come say hello if you come by.
Well, that's because it's duck season somewhere, isn't it?
It's duck season somewhere, which is the name of our podcast. If anybody just wants to go into full-time, all the time duck talk, come check us out. Duck Season Somewhere podcast.
Yeah, Russell Ramsey from Get Ducks. Go check him out for sure. Listen, we're going to get together more often. I hate that it's been as long as it's been, my friend.
Thank you, Ricky.
You bet. Hey, when we get back, we're going to have a conversation with my good friend, Houston Havens, about the duck season so far. We'll see you after this.